Hi everyone, I am Sashikaran Reddy from VIT Chennai, currently studying my third semester in CSC with a specialization in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, as a part of our digital assignment, we have to do a video on advanced topic in theory of computation. So, I choose the topic information processing by symmetric inductive Turing machines. So, we'll be further going into the presentation and we'll be getting the conclusion that why symmetric inductive Turing machines are more better than the conventional Turing machines and the inductive Turing machines. So, let's proceed. So, this presentation has five contents, which is the aim, the introduction, the symmetry in computation topic, the reflexive inductive Turing machines, and the final conclusions will be provided. So, the first part, the aim and the abstract. So, in the aim and the abstract, have a brief note about the traditional computational methods. So, the basic computational methods or the basic Turing machines will have a brief note. So, the traditional models of the computations, such as the Turing machines or partial recursive functions, perform computations of functions using a definite program controlling these computations. So, this approach detaches data which are processed by and the permanent program. So, which controls this processing. The physical computers often process not only the data but also their software, which are called the programs or the instructions. So to reflect this peculiarity of physical computers, symmetric models of the computations and automata were introduced. Further, we study more information processing by symmetric models, which are called the symmetric inductive Turing machines as discussed and the reflective inductive Turing machines. So the second part is the introduction. We'll be knowing about the symmetric Turing machines and the inductive Turing machines. The first one, the symmetric Turing machine. So formally, while defining a Turing machine or a variant of Turing machine with a set of transitions, we define generally the P, which is a state, the AB, which is a pair of symbol, the D, which is called the direction, the CD, which is again the pair of symbol, the Q, which is another state. So here, what happens is if the direction is left, then the head of a machine, which is the processor, which is will be in the current state P above a tape symbol, B preceded by a symbol A, can be transitioned by moving the head left, will be changing the state to Q and the pair of symbols from AB to CD. So this happens vice versa when the direction is the right. So the ability to peek at two symbols and change both at a time is non-essential but makes the direction easier. So the next is the inductive Turing machine. So in the inductive Turing machine, which is the finite state machine, which is associated that has an external storage or memory medium, and it gives the final result only when its output stops changing after a finite number of steps. So here, if you observe the H is the head or the processor, the M is the memory. So when give the input devices, it waits for certain number of times. Until then, if the output does not change for a certain number of times, then we'll be getting the result. So we learned about the symmetric Turing machine and the inductive Turing machine. Next. So going deep, theoretical models of automata and computations have threefold goal. The first one is to model physical automata and their functioning by theoretical rules. The second one, to study physical automata and their functioning by theoretical rules. The third, to delineate the further development of physical automata and their functioning by theoretical rules. The fourth, the most important, to reflect important properties of the computers. Next, so we'll be now discussing the comparison between the conventional Turing machine and the symmetric Turing machine. So the first, let's see how the conventional Turing machine works. So in a conventional Turing machine, the head, which is the processor, performs the operations with the data in the memory, which is called the tape, using a fixed system of instructions, which is called the program. So here I'll be showing a diagram. So this is the head. So this is the head and this is the tape. This is the processor and this contains the memory and it performs certain operations on this tape using a set of instructions or the finite number of instructions which are called the programs. So now let's look at the symmetric Turing machines. So in the symmetric Turing machines, information processing happens in two directions. So here in this conventional Turing machine, it happens in one direction from head to the tape, from the processor to the memory using a program. But in the symmetric, it happens simultaneously from tape to head and from head to tape. So in the symmetric Turing machine, information processing goes not only from the head, the memory, but also it goes the backward as discussed. So on the one hand, the head, which is the processor, performs operations with the data in the memory using a fixed system of instructions, which is called the programs. As same in the conventional Turing machine. The other addition to the symmetric Turing machines are the memory performs operations with instructions from the head processor. It is also possible to carry out this approach using two types of memory, which is the data memory, the program memory. So we'll be having the data memory in the tape and the program memory in the head. So, yeah, the operation where we have, and it is also possible to carry out this approach using two types of memory, the data memory and the program memory, and having a processor that performs two kinds of operations: the operations with the data based on information stored in the program memory, and the operations with the data program based on the information stored in the data memory. So it goes the two ways. So it's by the name we can understand that it's a symmetric Turing machine. So functioning of a symmetric Turing machine works in a parallel mode. Okay. So here it works in a parallel mode in the both the direction, in the opposite, but in the opposite direction. So can be simulated by conventional Turing machines with 5 tapes and 5 heads. So it means that the symmetric Turing machine and the conventional Turing machine has the same computational power, but our goal is to increase the time, or to decrease the time, and to decrease the length of the code, which increases its computational ability. So we have to achieve the higher computational power. So what we have to do? So we introduce symmetric inductive Turing machines, which further develop the structure and possibilities of inductive Turing machines, allowing modeling of natural computation in various situations. So let's see how we'll be developing the symmetric inductive Turing machine and a reflexive inductive Turing machine, which is a part of this. So the third part is symmetry in computation, which is the organization of symmetric information processing. So, in the symmetry in computation part, let's see. Physical computers and networks process information using various programs. Okay, the physical computers and the network processors are only working on various programs. So, the system of these programs is called the software of a computer or a network. So, here's the definition of the software. Now, let us see another term, which is the processed information, which is called the infware. The processed information, or the programs are called the software. The processed information is related to infware, and at certain point there is a symmetry between these, between the software and the infware. So to explicate the symmetry, we need a broader understanding of a program. So namely, so we define a program of computation as a structure that determines a computational process. So a computational process, it transforms, it transmits, it stores the structures which form in inferior of the computing system. Usually these structures represent data, although the goal of computation device is working with the knowledge. So we have two types of structures: the controlling the structure and the processed structure. So what we have learned from this slide is, first thing is there is a symmetry between the software and the infware, and the second thing is there are two types of structures related to this, that is the controlling structure and next is the processed structure. So the role of these two structures can be exchanged. So that's what the symmetry is. So for example, translate them from one programming language to another, or optimize them using the data structures for controlling this process. So the situation displays symmetry between the software and infware. So utilization of this symmetry will help us to achieve our goal. So utilization of this symmetry can serve for better organization and efficient optimization of the computational process. When a computational process involves transformation of not only the infware but also software, it becomes symmetric. Consequently, our automata and machines that process their infware and software are called symmetric. So when we use the property of symmetric nature between the software and the infware, then we can achieve our goal of reducing the development time or the compilation time. So there are three modes of temporal organization of the symmetric information. The first one is program preprocessing. The program preprocessing means, as discussed, there are two structures. The What are the structures? The controlling structure and the process structure. So the program pre-processing, here the program of a S machine is processed and then it is used for the input of data processing. So the first the program processing takes place, then the data processing takes place. The next one is interchangeable processing. So in this process, what happens is there will be alternate method. Like the first data is processed, next the program is processed, next the data is processed, next the program is processed. It occurs in the regular intervals, like alternatively. Next, the concurrent processing. In this concurrent processing, both the data processing and the program processing occur at the very same time. Next, let's go into the fourth part. Here we'll be discussing how to develop a kind, that is the reflexive inductive Turing machine, which is a type of a symmetric inductive Turing machine. So an inductive Turing machine, let's again come to inductive Turing machine first. So an inductive Turing machine gives the result either when it comes to the final state or when the word is in the output registers stops changing, as discussed. So if it stops changing for a finite number of times, then it says it's success or the output is passed, or we get the output in the inductive Turing machine. Next, this is the output stabilizing mode of computation. There are also other ways to determine the results of inductive computations. So a reflexive inductive Turing machine, this is the type of symmetric inductive Turing machine. So here in inductive Turing machine, will be having only one controlling device, but in reflexive inductive Turing machine, we'll be having two control devices. So which will be decreasing the development time. So a reflexive inductive Turing machine utilizes two types of memory, that is the data memory and the program memory, namely to enhance an inductive Turing machine with the possibility to perform symmetric computations. So in this reflexive inductive Turing machine, to perform the symmetric computations, then only we can achieve our goal. If we use the property of the symmetric nature only, we can proceed further. So to use the symmetric computations, we separate the memory E. So the E is called the memory and the H is called the head. So we separate the memory E into two parts. The first part is the data process or the information process, which is the ED, which is the infware, and the second part is the software. So of a particular machine M, we separate the memory E into two parts: ED, infware, the information processed, and the software, the programs processed. So Turing machine now has two processors, a data processor and a program processor. So the data processor performs operations with the data based on information in both in form of a program stored in the program memory. Similarly, the program processor performs the operations with program based on the data memory. So they are working vice versa. Like the data processor will works on the information based on the data memory, and the program memory, and the program processor will work on the basis of the data memory. So this allows the computer programs to be observing, reading, generating, analyzing, and modifying the other computer programs or themselves at runtime. So the goal is to allow software developers to minimize the length of the code to express a solution in turn, which also decreases the development time. So reflexive programming or the meta programming, if we quote, also provides means of higher flexibility of programs to efficiently handle new situations without recompilation. So the reflexive programming or the meta programming and using of the symmetric nature will also be very useful in many applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So let's go to the conclusion now. So we have used the symmetric inductive Turing machine or the reflexive inductive Turing machine, but defined, and the special case, a reflexive inductive Turing machine was studied and it was discussed that it has two types of processor, the data processor and the program processor. So it was demonstrated that introduction of symmetric computation or usage of the symmetric nature of the infware and the software, it allows the decreasing time of the computation although it does not change the computing power of the machines with one control device. So in the when we observe the conventional Turing machine or the symmetric Turing machine or the inductive Turing machine, they are using only one controlling device. But here we are using the two controlling devices, or the will be having use of two processor, the symmetric, the data processor and the program processor. So the first conclusion is we have to use multiple controlling devices rather than one controlling device to make use of the symmetric nature. The second thing is utilization of separate control devices of data and program processing allows the achievement of two concurrency, that is both happening at the same time, which in general case can bring the fourth computation of recursively incomputable data. Thus, there is an open problem in whether symmetric inductive Turing machines in general and reflexive inductive Turing machines in particular can be more computationally powerful than the inductive Turing machines. So that's the difference between the inductive Turing machines and the symmetric inductive Turing machines, or the kind reflexive inductive Turing machines. So multiple control devices having the concurrency, making use of the symmetric nature, and having multiple processes. The final conclusion, so we can solve some algorithmic Kolmogorov complexity problems, and we can, as proved using the inductive Turing machines, we can decrease the complexity of them. So yeah, symmetric Turing machines can solve or elaborate problems like the algorithmic Kolmogorov complexity problems. So basically, we are decreasing the development time or the compilation time. We are efficiently making use of the computational power. So these are the final conclusions. So as discussed, the information which processing by symmetric inductive Turing machines or the reflexive inductive Turing machines is very optimal, and we can increase the efficiency of the processing or the computational power. So that's the end, and thank you.